post Supergroove, I had kind of lost everything that my whole world had been devoted to. So I left Supergroove when we were at a sound check at what was meant to be the first gig of an Australian tour, another Australian tour. And it was a gig just for the record company. And I was starting to get pretty critical of the whole role of record companies by that time. And I just went, I'm not going to play for these people, and I'm going home. And I spent my per diems on an expensive second-hand book as well, so I didn't have any money for food, and I thought, hell, I'm going home. And yeah, so Supergroove was over for me, and pretty rapidly after that it was over for everyone else, and I just didn't know what to do with myself. So I went to Sweden with my now wife to visit my mum and to stay with her for a bit. And it was during that process of just sort of detoxing from Supergroove and reading books and being in Stockholm and stuff that I thought, oh, maybe university is something I should give a go. Because I'd been getting into reading philosophy and psychology and, just sort of conceptual, buzzy stuff, but being on tour. I'd never been interested in books before being on tour, and it just became a part of a way to kill time. And when I tried to talk about philosophy and stuff on tours to record company people and stuff, it was not acceptable. It's like, stick to music, Carl. And the Lord knows what stupid stuff I was saying too. But what I did find really interesting touring was going and playing in university towns and speaking with students, and I started noticing, that's a good conversation. And then talking to most of these people at the record company, they just want me to be a rock star. They want me to get pissed and whatever. And I felt this tension, and so once Supergroove exploded, I thought, I'm gonna go to university, because that's where you're allowed to have those buzzy conversations about stuff. And the music industry, in my experience of it, they didn't want to hear it. So I thought I'd give that a try, and it was a huge change from being a little touring musician, standing in queues all day to go get your ID for the blah blah, and sign up for this paper and ask permission to get accepted into that paper. And I mean, the levels of bureaucracy and stuff, and kind of Kafkaesque queues and requirements and forms, that in itself was an enormously good experience for me, because I hadn't done any of that stuff, being just a touring musician. And then the actual content of the courses themselves, I just loved it. I just loved philosophy and reading all the literature, and the university library, it's so quiet and everyone's like doing their work, and there's all this amazing information in there. And so after the music industry, I just thought that was fantastic. You get to pursue your own interests. No one's saying, hey, I don't know if writing an essay on that is going to sell many units in South Africa. It's just not about that. You just write it because you think it's interesting, and everyone thinks that's good enough. So I loved that, and I started getting good marks after I got the hang of it, and then started getting the odd little prize of a book voucher or whatever, and then scholarships. And so I went on and did my master's with a scholarship, and eventually the next sort of step, if I wanted to continue, was try and get into a university and get a scholarship to do a PhD, because there's these very clear sequence of events with university. You've done this, now you do that, and so if you want to stay, you just got to go on that conveyor belt. And so I applied and got a Commonwealth scholarship to go to Cambridge University and do my PhD there, which was amazing thing to happen, because I never finished high school or anything. I was never academically inclined. I was just into music. And so that was huge. Yeah. But then I suppose the experience of being at this very fancy university where these academics are coming from all over the world and having these super high level conferences, and you're finally meeting all the people who wrote the books that you have been working off and stuff, that was a little bit of a disillusioning process, as well as a incredibly enriching one. Meeting your heroes can often be disillusioning, and especially when it's philosophy. I sort of felt like we could be doing any subject in a way. We're meant to be philosophers. We should be like crazy or something. And also at the same time, it was depressing living over there in a small town. My wife got sick. My daughter was having a lot of challenges intersecting with mainstream schooling, and received her diagnosis of autism over there, and that had a lot of challenges associated, just practical challenges in terms of child rearing. And when life got really tough like that, that's when music started becoming important. Philosophy was cool, philosophy was exciting, I could do it, I was quite good at it if I really tried, but it wasn't a lifeline in the way that music was to me. And so I started to take whatever money that we had left over each month from the scholarship, and it was like, okay, the two things we need to do is be able to watch a movie every night together, my wife and I, because we both love movies, and we needed that time to just like go to a different place that wasn't our life, and also buy some CDs, and it might have been one a month, and sometimes it was 2, sometimes it was 4, and I bought like the last CD Walkman for sale in Cambridge, because I didn't know about any of this new music technology or whatever. That was just sort of starting to happen, I suppose. And I used to wander around with my CDs, and that really helped me get through the last kind of year and a half. And I also bought an electric guitar secondhand in some junk shop, and a drum machine sampler, and started making music as well. And that's where the Drabda of stuff came about. It was just a kind of a pressure release valve for depression and frustration and living in England away from all of our support network and that sort of thing. And it was very effective, and eventually that experience of getting back into music kind of propelled me out of academia completely, and back into music.